So I'm Rasheed Davis. I'm the NET coordinator here at South Kensington Community Partners. And I'm hosting this with my fellow NET coordinators, Stasia at HACE, and then Victoria at APM. But right now, I just kind of want to hand it over right to the Register of Wills and the reason why we're here tonight. So I'm going to lend that mic to her right now so she can get into it. Welcome.
Thank you all for inviting me. I'm really honored to talk to you all about the Register of Wills office and about some programming that I started and just an initiative. And we call this the Plan, Prepare, Protect series or webinars. And what we mean by planning means we want everybody to understand that they need to plan their estate. My main duty to the citizens of Philadelphia who have elected me for office is to make sure that I protect your generational wealth and make sure that proper transfer of your generational wealth goes from the deceased person to whoever the deceased person leaves it to, or if they don't leave a will, whoever the state of Pennsylvania says the next of kin is. So let me just tell you a little bit about what the Register of Wills does. We validate wills, we collect estate and inheritance taxes. We're just a collector, and we just send that money up to Harrisburg to a tune of normally $80 to $100 million per year. I repeat, every year during normal circumstances, not a pandemic, the Philadelphia office out of the 67 counties send between 80 to 100 million in estate and inheritance taxes to Harrisburg. So we are considered a first-class city. Our property and assets is worth a lot of money. And the state of Pennsylvania receives a lot of money from us in those estate fees and probate fees. I also assign executive privileges. I issue short certificates. Just remember that word, short certificates, because that's most of the times when somebody dies, the person that is either have been assigned to be the executor of the estate know that they come to our office. Or if they don't leave a will, you should know that that's the office you need to come to first in order to be able to do any business with that estate. For example, you live with your mother, she owns a property, mother and father owns a property, right? She dies without a will. It's 5 of y'all, you know? The point that the fact that she don't have a will means you have to come down to our office and you have to ask for an administrator and you have to show proof that you are the next heirs and the kins. And then I have to determine based on what the Constitution of the state of Pennsylvania said, which favors, of course, blood relations. The problem here in Philadelphia is we aren't taught estate planning or proper estate planning. And because we are not taught that when you buy a house or when you get assets, businesses, cars, stocks, bonds, stamp collection, that you need to be put in writing who you want to inherit your stuff. You get to decide who inherits your property because once you die, somebody has to still conduct business because you, as the dead person, can't. So someone has to close your estate, open estate by probating, and then they have to close it, open it, pay the bills, pay the estate taxes, and then from there, determine who those assets are going to be dispersed. And in the Philadelphia, we're finding that many people don't know that they need to make a will if you have assets and if you have minors. And if they have the will, they will come in our office, we verify the will, and you're in and out of there with 1 hour. You get to decide that. Or, unfortunately, many of us don't have the will. So then we come to the office without the will, and I have to determine by way of a citation hearing who will be the best administrator of the state, who are the heirs. All this has to be proven. And it's a lot more work. And sometimes it gets to be very, very disheartening because families fight.
Your will is just a document. It's only effective at death, which means that during your lifetime, you can change it as many times as you want to. But what you end up with at death, that's the one that's going to be legally valid going forward. So you list your assets and who gets what and who doesn't get what. Because if you don't have a will, the state of Pennsylvania already has a list of who gets what of your assets and in what order. So what you want to do is defeat that list and make a document that talks about who you want to have your things. Because for some of us, family is just a name. And you may actually be closer to friends than you are to family. But that statute is very biology centric. So it looks to see who your sisters are, who your brothers are, then who your nephews are, who your nieces are. And it may be that you have someone else that you'd like to take. And the other thing, in terms of getting a will, you should have a witness to your will, preferably two witnesses, and you should get it notarized. Because while your will be valid, it'll be legally valid. When it's time to get it probated, which means when it's time to come to the Register of Wills office and get them to certify that will, they will say, who witnessed it? And if you didn't get it notarized, you got to go find those people. Because then they have to sign something indicating that, yeah, I saw this person sign that will. So the best practice is to draft what we call a self-proving will, a will that already has the witnesses' names on it, and those names have been notarized properly by a notary.
People are losing assets like never before because they're stuck in tangled titles, or what some may consider dead property. So a tangled title is when somebody has legal interest in a property, but it's still in a dead person's name. And the reason why I say legal interest as opposed to heir property, I mean that because there's no such thing as heir property. It's just that legally, under the state of Pennsylvania, you may very well be the one to inherit your mother's or whoever the next of kin property. But because they didn't leave a will and they died, now you got to come down to the Register of Wills office and prove who you are, prove that you should be the one that's going to be the administrator the estate. Because right now we are sitting into close to 14,000 tangled titles, which means they can't do any legal business with the house. They cannot sell it. They can't pass it down to their families. They can't get equity loans. They can't even get FEMA. FEMA is free government assistance. They can't qualify for it because they are not the legal owner. And they certainly can't get any of the basic system repair grants that you all offer them. They can't get it. So if you're low income and you're living in a house, some of these houses are 100+ years, and sometimes you need to get a new gas heater or water heater or electrical work. There are programs out there that if based on your income, you can qualify for those programs. And unfortunately, they can't qualify for those programs. So you're actually sitting there as a squatter. And then the problem has become now is because now it's more than one layer of generations. So you may be living in a house that you may need to open up a couple of estates for that property. And so our office is now, for the first time in its history, I created an outreach department, and we will come to your organizations. We will speak to your churches. We will speak in any of your neighborhood organizations, your NACs, your CDCs, because the problem is a lot of people are going to lose generational wealth in the millions, because within the next 25 years, $68 trillion worth of assets is going to transfer from baby boomers to the millennials. And we aren't prepared. You're not prepared if you don't have a will, and the millennials are not prepared if they don't understand that there should be a will in the process. And so I'm aggressively going out to communities all over the city, and unfortunately, it has to be virtually now, which I think is better at least it's better than nothing, to educate people on one, plan your estate. And by planning your estate, you're making a will so you can protect your assets and prepare your family just in case you die or when you die, which we all are going to do. People think they get will, they make wills when they get old. No, you make wills when you obtain an asset or have minor children. Sharon, tell them more about the program and some of the eligibility requirements and how, this is one of the most innovative initiatives, I guess, in as far as home ownership and neighborhood preservation and asset protection ever in the city. And we got a partner with the Recorder of Deeds, and Sharon will tell you all a little bit more about that. We are going to make sure that your community is flooded with this information.
It really is a crisis. We know that there are at least 14,000 titles that are what we call tangled, meaning that they are in the name of a deceased person. Well, if a death just recently happened, and let's say there's a property in your mother's name or your father's name, that's not such a big deal. But when you leave it and it's been 10 years, 20 years, and you just kept the property in the deceased person's name, in addition to all of those things that the register mentioned, all of those programs that you're no longer eligible for, you also have a property, for the most part, that is subject to disrepair. And by the way, in your neighborhood, that is the typical profile for a property that is fraudulently conveyed to another, because you think that nobody's paying attention to that decrepit property, but developers are paying attention. And some of them are very good, but some of them are not. And the ones who are willing to break the law will do so. I don't know if you guys saw that article in the paper recently where they just arrested some folks for defrauding 19 homes. And of the 19, about 5 of them, I think, were deceased owners. So when you find yourself in that situation, sometimes it may be one death, maybe a mother died and then her child died, and then you're the grandchild trying to get this thing together. Well, one of the barriers to straightening out everything is the fees that you have to pay in order to raise an estate. Because now not only do you have to raise one estate, but you got to raise 2 estates, and it can be a tedious problem. So now you need an attorney to help you weed through it. So the register came up with this program that would be very, very helpful at helping people to resolve these tangled titles. So when you get there and you have to raise 2 estates, she's saying we can waive the fees. Now, we don't have the authority at this point to just say, forget the fees, but we're waiving them. So they're no longer a barrier to you to come down and open up those estates. And as long as you remain in the house, if the house that you are trying to secure is a residence where you're going to live, the register is never going to seek payment of those fees. Then if you run out and say, I'm selling that house, hey, y'all, cut us in. But if you're not, if you're just living there, we're giving you a pathway to live in a house with your name on it, so that when it increases in value, you or whoever the proper owners are can actually participate in that increase in value. Now, not only will we refer you to a nonprofit attorney, from one of the nonprofit legal agencies, so that the attorney is free. This can be tedious, so we want you to have counsel to go through the process. And then after you go through the process, at the end of that process, you actually should be drafting a new deed. So now you're taking it out of the deceased person's name and you put it into somebody who's living. That process of drafting and filing a deed will actually be cost-free, because James Leonard, who is the head of the Recorder of Deeds, the Department of Records is now called, he partnered with us. He said, hey, if y'all could get them this far, we will let them file the deed for free. So now you have a process to go from A to Z without having to pay legal fees, probate fees, or deed filing fees. So it is a great program.
We are just super concerned with the tangled title issue, and the fact is people are not able to they just not able to sustain themselves, and at this point, sometimes people just don't want to make a decision. And then they just say, oh, never mind, I'll just live here, whatever. And it's going to make matters worse. It's really going to make matters worse. And we're trying to keep people in their homes. We think communities are more healthy, certainly for the children and certainly for the estate.